Yeah.
We'll take Gabby out. Yeah, we'll take Gabby
Bye,
out.
Gabby.
Bye, Gabby. Oh my God, we're live. We're going to talk about billionaire space races, crossing the Kármán line, and what's next. Just kidding. All right, we're here for Disrupt TV, and more importantly, we've got our awesome guests today. I've got my awesome special co-host in place, Liz Miller. Vala Afshar is on vacation, and will be joining us in the next few weeks. But more importantly, we've got our awesome guests today. We're going to go backwards real quickly. We'll go with Jeff, and then we'll go to Sunil, talk a little bit about where you're calling in from today and what you'll be talking about real quickly. So, Jeff, you're on mute, but pop off mute and come on and say hello. So,
Hi. Okay. I'm Jeff Ullman, as Ray said. I'm calling in from my home on Stanford campus. I'm a retired professor of computer science at Stanford, and I will be, I guess, attempting to answer some of the questions that Ray has organized, and in particular do some prognostications for the next 20 years. Crazy thoughts. Anyway.
We are totally looking forward to the prognostications. Yes. That's actually the best part of the show. So,
I prefer crazy thoughts, quite frankly. I think they're the best kind.
So that's where we're headed. And Sunil, where are you calling in from, and what are we talking about today?
Hey, Ray and Liz and Professor Jeff. I'm calling in from right here in San Francisco Bay Area. And I'm going to talk today about design and innovation. And as you know, my role, I'm the managing director for Designit, Wipro company.
Wonderful. Hey, that's great. We're going to start the show. Elle's going to do the honors, but while she's doing that, I want to thank our sponsors, IFS, Robots and Pencils, for supporting the show and supporting this awesome guest list that we have going forward. So with that, we're going to start the show and we'll begin. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. We are live. So welcome to Disrupt TV. Super happy to have you here. I'm Ray Wang, one of the co-hosts and co-founders of Disrupt TV. We're here every week. And as you know, I'm the founder and CEO of Constellation Research, but more importantly, putting out a new book out there. If you get a chance to read it, it's called Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I'm joined here with my awesome co-host, Liz Miller. Liz, do a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll jump into Sunil.
Hey everyone, Liz Miller, Vice President, Principal Analyst here at Constellation Research, covering the fun-filled world of CX, marketing, service, sales, and the land of the CMO. But most importantly, today, I am officially hosting for Vala. It's a hashtag, it's a vibe, it's a whole feeling. Vala, we hope you're having a great vacation, but I'm just going to take over. Cool.
Hosting for Vala. Well, today's guest is awesome. We've got Sunil Karkera. He's a very, very important individual. He's actually one of the folks that leads Designit as the global managing director. He's got 26 years of industry experience, and he's co-founded a number of Silicon Valley startups along the way. He also was at TCS Interactive, grew the team to almost $1 billion, and also he joined Designit in the spring of 2020. Good timing there, bringing his extensive experience in the design and tech industry. But before that, he's an engineer at heart. He worked at Lockheed. He worked at Sonic Wall. He's the VP of Business Systems for Fox Interactive Media. And of course, today he's heading up global leadership team with Kirsty and Kali from the sunny and vibrant Silicon Valley in California. And of course, he's also an avid typography nerd. So we're going to go fonts with him a little bit and also talk about dystopian sci-fi. But more importantly, he's here. You can follow him at Glue Code. And of course, we'll give the first question to Liz. So welcome to the show, Sunil.
Thank you.
Hey, Sunil.
Thank you, Liz.
You know that anytime you and I get to talk, I have to start with the big question, maybe a little debunking, but we talk about design it. It's in the name, design. What is design? It's not the coloring in department, but what is it? Is it a fad? What is strategic design? Give us a little background.
Sure, Liz. So let's step back to old days. So modern design, modern origins of this word design is from the 1580s, from France. It's a verb, a design, and it actually means a scheme or a plan in mind from that French verb. But first of all, what design is not, just like you said, right? Design is not about making pretty things just for the sake of it. Design is the art and science of solving problems with purpose, innovating with purpose. So design helps you expand your mind, and design has the tools and techniques for that. Design brings honesty to your work, actually. Good design is honest, like Dieter Braun said. Design should make user interactions with the world, with the product, with the environment more natural and complete. Good design is invisible. It doesn't exist. It doesn't show up. So the kind of design we do at Designit, we design for how it works, we design for how it looks, and more importantly, we design for how it feels. When something works well, it naturally looks and feels good.
You know, it's a great point, right? A lot of people ask about design and the role of how design plays in high growth, right? Where does it grow, and how do you actually use design to innovate and provide that growth opportunity that's out there? A lot of people feel design might take too long to get to, right? Might actually impede growth. What's your view on that, and where does that, what do clients see?
Yeah, good design with good research and good methods actually help you. People use this word fail fast. I would say succeed better. Yeah. So design has a significant place in innovation and growth. So design can deliver these hidden perspectives that give a competitive edge. It can help you see things that you don't see. Like, for example, speculative design is an area that we practice. Speculative design, we help some of the greatest brands in the world to see those black swan events and black swan moments, which you don't see generally when you are in the business blinders, right? Or a frog in the pond view of the world. So we help companies innovate and look at high growth, high potential, just like the book you have here in the background. Somebody called Ray Wang wrote it, and it has a lot of this, to really invert the pyramid. I think it's page 93 or something, Ray, in your book, Inverting the Pyramid. We help invert that pyramid to focus on what matters for growth. So design can help you translate research into innovation and thereby bring in growth models.
Wonderful.
I love that. And it also brings in a whole lot of empathy, right? Because it forces you to sit in someone else's shoes. And I think that brings up my big question, which is, you hear everybody and their mom talking about, like, I've been to a design workshop. I'm going to go to a new design thinking. Like, everyone seems to claim to do it. But when it really just comes out, it ends up being like a new mission statement, or there doesn't seem to be like what you're talking about, like that there's that tangible, good direction that is impactful. So is it a fad? Like, is design thinking a fad? Or God, like, okay, is Sunil going to hang up on me now? But I kind of feel like everyone's doing it.
Yes, I'll say what's wrong with today's design thinking. Yeah, so it's become a fad. It's just like you said, everybody's mom and pop are in a design thinking workshop, and everybody's mom and pop are actually organizing design thinking workshop, right? So, but the state of the practice of design thinking is kind of dire and unfortunate today, in how it is practiced in an industrialized fashion. All right. So design thinking has done today, it kind of privileges a kind of innocent mind state, right? Expertise becomes a burden sometimes in this, and it prevents the kind of innovative thinking that can come only from kind of a novice mind. So it kind of professes empathy, user-centeredness, sometimes in a very superficial way. So with the knowledge acquired through very brief, limited contact, design thinking adopts, as practiced today, adopts the language of the humanities, but avoids this deep understanding of context in favor of rigid rules and processes, and then collection of this whole walls of sticky notes. Design thinking is not this whole wall of sticky notes, right? Some of the design thinking that is unfortunately practiced today emphasizes on like the quantity of ideas. Ideas are cheap without always engaging with what those ideas actually are. What is the context of those ideas? So there is this thing called, collector's fallacy, where the good feeling that comes from producing and collecting ideas, that becomes a substitute for actual doing the work. But creativity is hard and, uncomfortable. So good design thinking, as we practice, takes effort. It's hard if it's done in the right way, but unfortunately it's not. It's become a fad. So we don't do it that way, Liz. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah. Well, I like that you specify that you guys, and having had the opportunity to talk to you so many times before, you talk about strategic design. It's not just thinking about it. It's focused. It's very strategic. So I think I think that thought is certainly there.
Yeah, we're designing and innovating for the long term, not just the short, right? Yeah.
No, it makes a lot of sense, and given all the design thinking hucksters out there, we actually have to get this done in the right way. And one of the important areas that we keep seeing is really the role of AI as it plays, in terms of not only capturing information or creating self-sensing environments, in terms of actually, creating opportunities for organizations to think about where automation and sentience come into play. Where do you see that? How does design, and how do you design for AI today?
So modern AI has made some progress in leaps and bounds, right? You saw GitHub Copilot writing code using GPT-3, right? And it is amazing, but modern AI is generally invisible. So how do you design for the invisible? So how do you design for sentient systems, right? So AI is, most of design is done as deterministic systems. AI is probabilistic. AI is a series of probabilities. You take a picture of a fruit and AI gives you that it's 90% an apple and 5% an orange. So you're designing for probabilities. So we are, as designers, used to building specific things in a deterministic way. So for designing for AI, there's a whole new thinking, tooling, the whole tool chain and data-driven design that needs to take place that can design for probabilistic thinking.
Makes a lot of sense down the line.
So here's the big question, right? Because I think when you start to talk about things like you have to design for the invisible, that's a big statement, right? That's like, let's design water. Like what? Like to wrap my head around it is huge. So, but what are some of the lessons that you've learned? And I think that there have been really big ones that have been like seismically transformational, right? That design has been root of, whether it's Industry 4.0, whether it is new business units, whether it is designing for the invisible. What are some of those core principles and best practices of design? And I would probably dare to say innovation that you have seen.
Sure, great question. Design and innovation doesn't mean, as practiced, doesn't mean simply coming with the newest shiny thing. It has to mean something, right? So, yeah,
we want shiny objects.
Yeah. We like shiny, Sunil. Come on.
So good design that drives innovation means actually discovering new business models that yield long-term profit for the organization. If I look at in a purely capitalistic way. Okay, so it has long-term profits. It is those growth drivers for companies. So businesses will often promote design and innovation, but generate ideas that aren't sustainable. There's always this, let's do a chatbot for the bank, even if the chatbot really sucks, right? It looks beautiful, but that's not design and innovation, right? It may be that the organization is unable to absorb the innovation, by the way. I've seen this. Where organizations do this design and innovation investment, but they're not able to absorb it and put it into the production line, like actually put it in the hands of customer. A lot of design dies soon after it is prototyped. Okay, even if it's successful. So I've learned to streamline design and handhold it so that it actually gets to the customers touch it. Right. So it may be that it has, no place sometimes in, I've seen design innovation sometimes has no place in corporate strategy. It's not in the plan. It should be put in the plan. You need to put in the strategy and planning to actually derive value out of it. It may be that, innovation, as good as it sounds, is a press release in most companies. Okay. It's a PR moment. It doesn't actually have a profitable business model behind it. So design and innovation should be purposefully driving sustainable long-term business models. So the decision makers and planners should really take a principled stand towards it. So business models developed through innovation activities must meet those standards of like desirability, feasibility, viability, adaptability, and may I say sustainability. So it should not be just because, oh, we have this cloud technology, let's innovate on the cloud. Doesn't mean anything. Yeah. Don't design for that. Don't innovate for that.
It shouldn't just be aspirational, you say?
Yeah, it just be aspirational. So in the process, also, let's not forget the human at the end. Liz, you and I talked about this earlier too. Keep your design honest and innovation honest and human centered. Your design will succeed. Your innovation will succeed when you fit it around the human.
Yeah. But one of the things that you brought up that I loved that you brought up when you and I have talked about this in the past has been, you have to have that invitation to everyone feeling a little bit uncomfortable, right? Because the process of going through that design process is going to ask some really hard, uncomfortable questions. And you have to be okay with not being okay in those moments, but that's what gets you to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're definitely seeing that as well. And along the way, I mean, Sunil, clients, I mean, what are they looking for? I mean, you've been talking to folks, we're post-pandemic, everyone's jumping in. People know that they've got to get their digital channel right, but there's more to that than trying to figure this out than just a digital channel. What are you seeing? What kind of advice are you talking to clients about? Like, what are some advice for people who are listening, as they're trying to figure out what's next post-pandemic?
Sure. One of the things I believe, and we have seen it with the pandemic, is change happens gradually, then suddenly. Organizations were not prepared for this. Although they were investing in transformation, they were investing in the pace of it is so accelerated so much, and talent is a difficult thing right now, both in design and technology talent. So clients are asking us, how can we accelerate our pace of innovation through design? How can we? They are not just they've adapted now. They understand, or rather, there's an understanding that the human centricity plays a huge role in their products becoming successful or their services becoming successful. So there's a huge shift that I see in human centeredness. So I am having conversation with CIOs about human centeredness, not with the chief design officer or not.
Wow. So we've seen a big shift. I mean, people are actually talking about this at the executive level, which hasn't happened in a long time.
Yeah. Design and human centeredness, board level issue.
Wow. There you go. We have it from Sunil. Design is a boardroom issue. Any last questions from you, Liz? So to Sunil.
What's up next? Like, I want to know what's up next for Sunil. Like, listen, you've built massive businesses. You have been exceedingly successful in guiding Designit, and Wipro has been terrific in staying ahead of the curve when it comes to really bringing design to tangible businesses. You're really making change. What's next? Where are you heading? Come on, you're staying put clearly, but what's next?
So great, actually, I'm figuring it out, but I'm actually encouraged by what I'm seeing, and kind of dinners going to space today. There's a lot of design to be done in the future for space transportation, for hotels in space, for industries in space. There's so much scope for sustainability. I want to be involved, and Designit has actually is pivoted towards actually sustainability and circularity. We now, as designers, have to take a responsibility and accountability to our planet in understanding materials, understanding the decarbonization cycle, and actually.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge piece in
focus on. They are like our universe. They are eternal molecules building new things. That's where I want to go.
So little things, like you're looking to try to tackle like little topics, like
door handles and cups.
Universe. Yeah. Like it.
We're here with Sunil Karkera, VP and Global Managing Director at Designit. He's a designer at heart, engineer by training, but more importantly, a curious individual looking into sci-fi and other areas. Sunil, we have to get back together soon. You can follow him on Twitter at Gluecode, Gluecode, and more importantly, follow the blogs and other things that they have at Designit. You guys have a really cool podcast. Actually, what is that podcast? You should share it with us. So,
actually, our podcast is called Yellow. YELLO. and we bring in very controversial topics. We don't talk about Designit. We talk about topics of social justice, topics of future of transportation, topics that matter to humans. And I think Ray will be very soon seen in our podcast shortly.
But wait, Sunil, I just want to know, in your podcast, do you tackle what I think is probably one of the most important issues for mankind? Comic Sans. I'm just saying, like, we have to address this. Like, Sunil, we've got to take care of this. I can't deal with it anymore. It has to go.
It is interesting that in the past, Steve Jobs presented using Comic Sans. So I have screenshots of it, but I have it has lived its time. I think let us give its due. Comic Sans has made us better. Because of it, we have better fonts now, or typeface.
Comic Sans, the most divisive font in the history of typography.
Out of there, Sunil.
But anyways, we'll leave it as that. Thanks a lot for being on the show. Thanks for being here. We're going to jump to our next guest. So thank you, Sunil. So very, very cool.
Hello.
Well, welcome. We've got our next guest. So one of the legends in computer science right here, Jeff Ullman. Many people know him. Jeff has been a professor at Stanford. He served as the department chair for computer science. He was named the Stanford W. Ashman Professor of Computer Science in 1994, emeritus in 2003. He's also inducted in 1994 as a fellow of the Association for Computing Machinery. And of course, in 2000, he was awarded the Knuth Prize. And Ullman is also the co-recipient with John Hopcroft of the 2010 IEEE John von Neumann Medal. I can't think of any other awards that you could have won other than this year. Congratulations. You're a winner with your partner, the Turing Award for 2020 with Al Aho. Congratulations. And of course, he's here on Disrupt TV today. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. I am very happy to be here.
Well, first of all, I will pass it on to Liz for the first question. But hey, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. And you're on the Stanford campus, one of the most exciting places for computer science.
And one of the things so I was a politics major in college. So professor, I would not have been in, I would have just messed up every single one of your courses. So I'm going to ask you this. So first off, congratulations on winning the ACM Turing Award for innovations in algorithms, formal programming language, compilers, and databases. That is a mouthful that even I, the humble marketer co-hosting here, that was a lot. Wow, amazing. But we often see these patterns, like we can see patterns and trends, and they start to repeat themselves. And as we start to move more to a decentralized computing and cloud model, what stays the same? Right. So what stays the same, but what starts to be radically different?
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Look, I could answer that probably in a million different ways, but let me talk about one issue, which is code optimization. See, back in the 60s, the 70s, there was a lot of work done on optimizing conventional language. Think of it as C or C++. For a quick example, when you write a loop, if there's some complicated formula that's evaluated inside the loop, parts of that formula will involve the loop index, other parts not. If you take out the parts that don't depend on the loop index, they're going to get computed the same way every time. You just do it once outside the loop. That saves some time. The technology led to code optimizing compilers that would speed your code up by a factor of 2. Now, this is still very important in, at least for if you're running a large program that's going to take hours, or if you're running a little program that you're running over and over again, on your web server. If you can save 50% of your time running the program, that means you can do with 50% less hardware. That still makes a difference. What's new? Maybe in the 80s and 90s, optimization for very high-level languages like SQL, it probably was the best example. It took us maybe 20 years to learn how to optimize SQL. The interesting thing there is you get not just a factor of 2 speed up, but orders of magnitude speed up. It makes it possible to write in a very high-level language like SQL, which you really couldn't do without optimizing. Now, more recently, the same very high-level language with powerful optimizers is the story is being repeated in something like Smart. This is the what's I guess becoming a standard for doing essentially using computer clusters, writing code on computer clusters, and I think there the community is now beginning to do really serious optimization of Spark code, and this looks like a very exciting development for the future.
Wow. I mean, the ability we might even get to that point where code actually writes code on its own. I mean, do you foresee that day where we can get to sentient code where that optimization actually occurs within the code on its own?
Probably not. You get into this undecidability problems pretty quickly. You don't know exactly what code is doing, so it's very hard to. I mean, you can do in some special cases, such as SQL. SQL is it's easy because it's not a Turing complete language, so you can optimize it. But if you want to start looking at C programs and writing. You think you're going to write a program that's going to look at a C program, figure out what it's doing, and figure out how to do it better. That's not going to happen.
So we still can't get through that problem of infinite strings that will continue towards the end, which is what you're referring to, which is kind of the challenge. So, okay, no, I do get that. I do understand that part. But let's take ourselves out of that, right? We're actually seeing some interesting advancements in quantum computing, and we're getting to the point where we've got the hardware, we've got some semblance of a stack to work with over time. You got Honeywell and IBM and other folks jumping into the fray. Where do you see, like, where is quantum computing today? Are we too early? Is it just the beginning of the cycle? Is there, can we get these qubits stable enough? What do you think?
Well, I mean, the Turing lecture was broadcast yesterday, and I think it's still available. Al spent a good fraction of the Turing lecture on computing. He knows a lot more than I do about it, and I encourage you to listen to what he has said. But I think he would agree that we're really not there yet, and it's not clear that we're going to get there. I think what happened. Well, first of all, quantum communication, what they call the spooky action at a distance. This seems to be real and may be useful. It may give you a way to transmit data secretly with no possibility that anyone can intercept it. But when you talk about quantum computers, he said yesterday that IBM just came out with 65 qubits. You see, the problem was the Shor's algorithm, which the thing that shows how a quantum computer could, in principle, factor numbers and therefore break RSA encryption.
Correct.
It's in a sense a snare and a delusion. In that you need something like, again, I'm quoting really Al's talk yesterday, millions of qubits to break current RSA codes. It doesn't appear that quantum computers are on a Moore's law curve, where the number of qubits is going to double every 2 years or something. It's growing slowly. It may in fact be growing exponentially. We don't really have enough data to see whether it's an exponential curve. But even if it is an exponential curve, it's slower than the Moore's law for conventional computing. So, if now you need millions of qubits to break RSA, by the time you get there, RSA codes will use many more bits, and you'll need more than millions of qubits. So I don't think that quantum computing is really going anywhere. Shor's algorithms seem to have been a very interesting anomaly. Since then, nobody's really come up with any really interesting algorithms for doing things that appear to require exponential time and doing them fast. So my advice is let somebody else worry about it.
So we're not going to be operating in polynomial time, and we won't have to worry about these basically these algorithms breaking public key cryptography for quite some time is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that's my guess.
I'm going to turn let someone else worry about
so far.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
So I'm going to ask you this, Professor, because I am really curious to know. We kind of talk about 2020 in this sense of like so much happened. There were so many major breakthroughs. But if I could ask you to step to 2040 and take a look back, right? So it's 2040. We're looking back on the field of CS. From your vantage point, what about any breakthroughs that we've seen in 2020 are still going to stand that test of time? Do you expect to be kind of foundational as we keep moving forward and foundational for the field and for society for that matter?
Yeah. Well, let's see. First of all, I'm sure I'm not the first of your guests to quote Yogi Berra about prognostication is difficult, especially about the future. But I don't know. I hate to try to guess what's going on, what's going to happen even in the next couple of years. Let me just start with a recollection that I think illustrates how difficult it is to prognosticate. Back in I think the winter of 1992. It's important. The date's important. I was one of about 300 people invited to Washington to a meeting to discuss what was then called the information superhighway.
Yep.
And again, these were, it was academics, it was top industry people, and the discussion verged on whether information superhighway was going to be built by the telephone companies or the cable companies. And there was some mention of little protocols like Gopher. Okay. And nobody mentioned HTTP or HTML. I had no idea they existed at the time. And then the next year, so you got to take what I say with a grain of salt. But what I'd like to do is maybe throw out a couple of areas where I think some progress might build on the technology that we have today. Okay. First of all, social media seems to be a tremendous problem. I stay away from it, right? I was asked to put my Twitter handle. I don't have a Twitter handle. I'm not on Facebook. I just stay away from all of this stuff. But that's my personal opinion. It's pretty obvious now that we have a serious problem about the ill effects of people using social media. Just for example, hate speech seems to be rampant, and you would think that this is a problem that can be automated away. Well, first of all, you have to define what hate speech is, and that may depend upon the context. If you look, let's say, the world of newspapers, the standards of what is appropriate at the New York Times, the Washington Post, is rather different from what it is at the National Enquirer. So we may see that different social media have basically different policies, but once you define what hate speech or inappropriate material of any of whatever sort you want to get rid of, misinformation. I think, by the way, misinformation about medical matters is a much more serious matter than misinformation about whether the thing you saw streaking across the sky is a UFO or not. But this is a very hard technical problem of how, even given a definition of what it is you don't want people to be saying, how do you find out that they're saying it and decide that correctly? I think another interesting direction is in privacy research. I don't know. I have been quoted correctly many times. I have a slogan which is, "I don't care if my toaster sees me naked." The idea is it's a machine. It doesn't matter. And my analogy, I don't care if Google computers know something very, deep about me. They know where I've been, they know what I search for, and so on. As long as it stays within the computer, that's fine. The problem is when people start knowing about it. Now, I'm sure at least many of your listeners have heard about the the counter argument is what I call the Target example, where Target, the retailer, learned that a 16-year-old girl was pregnant on the basis of things that she had bought at Target, and started sending her snail mail advertising other products for things that I guess a pregnant woman would want. And her father found out about this and hit the roof because she hadn't told her parents yet. There was a major freak out over this. Now, to my mind, the problem is that Dad was opening her mail. That it was people intruding into the process. Now, yes, okay, she's only 16. The father has a right to open the mail. So, I get that.
You want to know the backstory on that one, Professor?
I would love to.
She opted in for the baby registry in a kiosk in store.
Oh.
So the missing piece of the information is she didn't tell Dad that either.
So exactly what you're saying is that it was very easy for Target to figure that one out. Okay.
It was very easy for Target to target her.
Yeah, it was she asked for them to, in a way. But I think your point is so important that the human intervention wasn't even necessarily someone at Target or the company that was managing that program for them. Yeah. It was Dad. Dad called a press conference in front of Target and accused them of corrupting his daughter. I mean, he opened the mail. I think you're very right in that point of intervention.
Yeah.
So, well, hey, but before you go, I do want to talk about something you're interested in, which is really subscription-based models versus ad-supported models, and really where that's going, and talking about ads and the relationship to privacy. You're talking about a company that was doing subscription-based search, and let's talk a little about that real quick.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, I'm not even going to mention the name of the company, but I was listening a couple of weeks ago to something on I guess Bloomberg or something. But some guy is going to says, oh, it's horrible that Google knows about you and sends you ads based on what they know, and he's going to give you a subscription-based search that doesn't learn anything about you. Even assuming that he could do as well as Google, which I really doubt, because they've had now decades to perfect the what they do. Does anybody really want to pay to avoid ads? I wanted to tell you an experience I had on Prime Day. I ignore Prime Day, but for some reason I just sort of went and saw what there was, and they offered me a new tablet and I could buy it for $50 without ads and $60 with ads, and now I can afford that extra $10. But I said, hey, they'll suggest books that I want to read, and they'll so the ads are going to be useful to me. So I went for the $50 item. And I think the interesting question is, suppose they had said it's $50 if we don't serve you ads, but for an extra $10, we'll give you advice on things that you want. We'll use our computers, and our software developers will work to help me to choose help me navigate my life through the ads that they will show me. I don't know. I might have been willing to pay an extra $10 for that service.
We're gonna have to run an A/B test on that. So, yeah. But hey, we're here with Jeff Ullman, computer science professor at Stanford. I think that's too little of a title. This is one of the legends in computer science, Turing Award winner, and more importantly, we serve together on a board. So really appreciate you being here. No Twitter handle, no social media, but you can reach him at ullman@gmail.com. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jeff, and hopefully see you on the Stanford campus soon.
Thank you. Well, glad to be here.
Very cool. And you have one of your former students is joining us next. She actually took 2 of your classes. So we'll bring her on by and actually say hello as well. So very, very cool. All right. So cool. Well, we are here. All right. So let's talk about who's next. Well, Clara, welcome. So good to see you. Very, very good to have her here. And Clara, more importantly, you are the new CEO of a very, very important part of Salesforce, which is called the Service Cloud. So I'll do a quick bio of you, but more importantly, CEO of Salesforce Service Cloud. It's the #1 customer service, digital service, and field service solution with a 360-degree customer experience and conversations. But more importantly, you've been on the Fortune list for 40 under 40, most powerful women entrepreneurs, fast companies, most influential people in technology, and a young global leader by WEF, World Economic Forum. So Claire's also a member of the Starbucks board of directors and serves as the executive chair of Hearsay Systems, a company you founded in 2009. But here's for Jeff. Clara graduated #1 in CS at Stanford University, where she also received an MS in CS. And of course, she has an MS in Internet Studies from Oxford, where you were a U.S. Marshall Scholar. Very, very cool. You can follow Clara on Twitter at Clara Shih, SHIH. So thanks for being here on the show, and welcome.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Clara, my first question is, were you worried there was going to be a pop quiz in that last segment?
A little bit, yeah. There was some
talking, and he was just going to be like, Clara, I know you're back there. What is this? And you would just be like, like
big time. I was trying to think about all my database knowledge. CS 245. That's what I took from Professor Ullman.
That's awesome. Should I start with a serious question though? Like, because now we have some serious questions, because we could gossip about like college days, like the whole episode probably, but we won't torture you with that.
That'll be the next one.
I know that'll be the next time we do this. So I'm gonna kick off. I'm gonna ask the first question, if that's okay, right?
Yeah, go for it.
I think that more than any part of the organization, the pandemic literally just took customer service and just like shook it from like moment one, like probably in say February when we started hearing rumors that this was going to be a pandemic. It permanently has shifted customer service. So what are the big challenges? Like, what are some of the big challenges that the pandemic kind of highlighted and threw into the kind of in the way of a lot of customer service organizations? And how did they really have to be addressed? Because it wasn't just one thing. It was like, we threw the kitchen sink at service. All your agents have to go home. Everyone's going home. Like, everyone's mad. It was just like the avalanche hit customer service. So,
and your wait time will be 2 hours and 3 minutes.
right. And everyone's at home. So now you had agents with like dogs barking in the background. And how did that happen? And how do we shift? And like the concept of shift in pandemic was top of mind for everyone. So what kind of sticks in your mind as some of the biggest things that happened through all of this that are kind of going to change service, really, not only in the near term, but in the long term?
You're so right. I mean, in the last year, service has become the foundation of every company. I mean, it was all along, but I think especially during the pandemic, a lot of companies stopped marketing. They stopped focusing on sales. It went back to basics, to brass tacks. And they said, look, we can't lose our customers, that we have to go back and we have to make sure that they're okay. And so customer service became much more prominent. And in the meantime, as you were saying, right, the spike in call volume and customer issues because of delays, because of stores being closed and all the questions that the store used to handle now flooding into contact centers, it created this really hectic scenario at the exact time, as you were saying, that agents had to pivot quickly to working from home. And so you've got higher demand in customer calls. You have your supply, right, your labor pool. Some of them are just out of the workforce. Some of them are sick or taking care of loved ones. Or if they're home, they've got kids and dogs in the background. So they're just not as productive as they used to be. So it really was a perfect storm of all these different forces. And I think it created, necessity is the mother of invention and creativity. And that's exactly what we've seen across customer service. And so what have organizations done, right? Think about these new behaviors that we all expect: meal delivery, curbside pickup, booking appointments to go to the zoo, right? I can't just take my 6-year-old to the zoo anymore. I actually have to book an appointment to make sure that
you're going to Happy Hollow.
So everything, even going to the zoo, right? Everything has become digital first or digital only. And so we're seeing this in our numbers, right? Just the automation through the roof, use of Einstein service bots up 700% from last year, and it's sustaining and continuing to grow, actually. And so self-service, true omni-channel becoming a real thing. After years of talking about these concepts, companies have just been forced to actually implement and execute.
Wow. And we're actually seeing those changes actually happen. And they're a little bit different across industries. I mean, in some industries, they've got it. Other industries haven't picked it up as quickly. But is there a common theme among industries? And do you see certain industries doing it better or worse?
For sure. I mean, you think about this, right? We live in this era of digital automation in experiences accelerated by the pandemic. And so, of course, the companies that are e-commerce, digital native organizations in those industries, they had a leg up because they were already working this way. And I think those already, willing to throw money at the problem have always had great customer service. You look at a Zappos or a Nordstrom or a Four Seasons. I think the challenge has been, how do we scale excellent service to any organization, even those with very different business models than a Four Seasons, right? And that's really the challenge. In terms of industries that have the biggest potential to disrupt, I always, think consumer first, right? As a consumer, where do we get those recorded messages telling us that we have a 2 or 3 hour hold time? Where is it the worst? Because that's where there's the greatest upside. And so I think about those contact centers. I think about, banks, won't name any names, insurance companies, health plans, telcos, right? Those are the companies that I and probably all of you have spent hours waiting on hold to talk to over the last 12 months. And that's exactly what we're seeing in our business, is those companies in those industries coming and saying, hey, we're here. We really want to transform. It's not just about turning on a bot. It's not just about enabling web chat or mobile chat or SMS. It's really rethinking all of our processes and how we address what kinds of support questions.
But hey, I don't know if you did this, but I was in a Chick-fil-A line, and those were awesome. I don't know what happened, right? Of all the customer post-pandemic things, the Chick-fil-A line actually won out more than anything else. I mean, me and Vala were talking about it. It's like anywhere you go, it was like the fast service, mobile delivery app worked, right? People actually helping each other in the line. I mean, people were happy, they were smiling, they're directing you. Like, didn't matter which Chick-fil-A I went to, it was exactly the same experience. I mean, maybe that's one company that might have been doing something different. So
I think that's a really good point, right? You think about the companies that offer excellent customer experience. Yes, the tools and technologies and processes matter, but it starts with having really great employees who are engaged, who are empowered, who are given the information and the tools to be successful. And so I think that's what you see whenever behind every great experience is a happy employee. And it's a big area of focus for us as we go into HR service as an expansion of Service Cloud.
But that's so interesting, because I think that it's really easy, at least for me, when I start thinking about service, those consumer kind of the what I don't want to experience. I love when I call the airline that I use, that it just automatically is like, yes, we recognize your phone. Let's tell you about all the things that we can help you with. Like, I think those experiences are really easy to think of. But when we think about B2B experiences, right, for those of us in B2B enterprises, there was a lot of change that had to happen at the field service level too. And you talk about needing to have happy employees. Like, how do you empower them at that level so they can be better, that there are experts, that there were experts on the line? I mean, it changed. I mean, everything turned on its head, right? So how did those field service technicians become experts where they could be remote rather than having to be like literally there with the screwdriver, literally doing things? And I think cloud services had a lot to do with changing that dynamic. And my question for you is this: like, I can think of probably like 1 billion consumer organizations that did a great job even through the pandemic in kind of bringing that customer service, up leveling that and having happy employees and all that. Anyone that is like, listen, you guys work with the best of the best, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie about that one. Any examples that maybe are kind of like a little unexpected of people who really did a good job?
There's so many. I mean, I think one that was just such high stakes because it went well beyond service was Sonos, right? We all know Sonos and their speakers.
Oh, yeah.
And you think about pre-pandemic, the vast majority of their sales came from brick and mortar locations, like a Best Buy or a Magnolia, et cetera. The pandemic happens, all of a sudden, right, people are no longer going into these stores, they're scared to.
Yep.
But then people are at home and they want music, right? This is like therapy, and it's like about survival. And so demand goes way up. So they quickly had to bolster their e-commerce channel. And they they had e-commerce all along, but they really became an e-commerce first, an e-commerce majority company during the pandemic. And that was all, powered by Service Cloud. Or you look at a company like Dell, right? 17,000 agents. They run a contact center, multiple contact centers.
Small company,
different countries.
Not international or global.
Right, global. 24/7 contact center.
He still likes to call. Like, he still likes to call and test the employees to see if they're doing it right. So, like, not an easy environment.
Sometimes people it depends on the issue, right? I usually don't like to call, but there's certain times when you want to call, right? So think about this, the complexity of 24/7 contact centers, 125 different countries, over 20 million calls a year, and then pivoting overnight to people working from home. And again, being able to do that with Service Cloud, Console, without skipping a beat, or other, same with Samsung, right, in the UK, or Pearson Education. You think about how much education has had to pivot to online. Everyone's suddenly working from home within days. And so we helped them scale up their operations as demand spiked, while deflecting a bunch of those calls to digital and self-service.
Wow.
And then I really thought your point earlier about field service was an important one too, because what we're also seeing, again, accelerated by the pandemic, was the notion of field service is changing as the lines blur across field service, contact centers, and digital service. And I'll give you a specific example. 6 months ago, we launched a new product called the Virtual Remote Assistants. And it's this idea that for a lot of field service issues that traditionally you would call a technician to come into your house or into your office for, because of COVID, people didn't feel as comfortable doing that, and yet the fix needed to happen. And so recognizing that everybody's got, one of these, they've got their phone, and their phone has a camera on it. What VRA, virtual remote assistance, does is it allows the customer, or if the field service technician is out in the field deployed and stuck, to actually show the machinery that they're dealing with. And for somebody remotely in the contact center, maybe who's got special expertise in that particular model, to actually use AR to draw and show them where to reset, where to do this. And so we're actually seeing field service happen digitally, which in this case, it's like, is it still called field service if it's happening all virtually?
It expands the field, and that's what, isn't that what digital is supposed to do to begin with, right? It expands out that field and what our definition of it is. But I think what's so interesting about that story you just shared is it's not just about where digital allowed the field to go, it's where the organization is allowed to put the customer. And that's really truly at the center of the enterprise, right? Like, you're putting the customer right in there of what can they show you? You still need to solve the problem. You don't get to say, well, our field service agents are not allowed to come in your home for COVID. Good luck. See you later, bye.
You still have a customer satisfaction survey.
Service, right? So I love that it shifts the conversation and brings the customer right back into it, which is awesome.
That's right. And I think going forward, companies are realizing, hey, for this whole host of issues that we were rolling trucks for before, now we can save a ton of expense and also make our customers much happier, kind of helping them fix it themselves. And only for the truly complex cases do we need to deploy field technicians.
Yeah. And no one gets yelled at the call center, so you have happier employees. Like, let's not diminish the value of, going back to Ray's Chick-fil-A example, right? We can't diminish the value of really happy people. And you've just turned a call center person with expertise into an expert. And that's awesome. That is a really cool way to recognize your people. So I love that example.
Well, hey, I want to jump in real quick, Clara. Look, you've been in this business around service, social selling. You were early pioneers in all these areas. What's gotten better? You started Hearsay in 2009. You're now at Salesforce. It's been 12 years. What improvements have really took place for customers? What things are here to stay? And kind of a question we asked Jeff Ullman earlier. If it's 2040, what from this post-pandemic era sticks and makes it into 2040?
Yeah, when I started Hearsay 12 years ago, it was really about just being where the customer was. It was meeting the customer on social, meeting the customer on SMS, on a mobile app, on web. I think we see now organizations of all sizes have done that. We have those channels, but it's still not a seamless omni-channel experience, right? And this is what we saw in the pandemic, was companies large and small coming to us and saying, hey, we've got this bot set up, we've got our website, we've got chat, but it doesn't all connect. And so that results in the customer experience of going and Googling an issue and not getting what they want, and then chatting with a bot and not getting what they want, and then having to repeat herself, right? This happens to me all the time, to the agent. All of that context of what I tried to search for on the support website, on the information I shared with a bot, all of that should be passed off seamlessly.
No more cold transfers, cold handoffs, right? We got to get rid of those. They're horrible.
It's horrible, right? And then the days of, agents kind of listening on the phone and frantically trying to type in what the customer is saying, those days are also over, because we live in an era now of Siri and Alexa. And if I were to point back at the thing that I'm the proudest of over the last 12 months in Service Cloud, it's really been how Service Cloud Voice has brought Siri and Alexa-like capabilities to the contact center and to customer support teams. And you think about, again, human agents playing a critical role. How do we empower them to focus on the relationship, to focus on higher order tasks? Well, it's by taking things like when the customer talks about their issue or order number, we can transcribe that in real time and pop that open in the agent's console, so that the agent can really focus on resolving the issue more quickly while connecting with the customer.
Yeah, and plus we're building the business graph. I mean, we're giving the capability there for, organizations to keep bringing that tribal knowledge in so they can learn, they can continue to actually learn from those experiences, build on them, and get to some better suggestions. So, but
it's so true, right? And you think about in the past, right? If you were an agent, there's such high turnover in this business, as you know. If you got stuck, you'd turn over to the agent next to you and you'd ask him or her for help. With everyone at home, you can't do that, right? You can't just flag down your supervisor. So
we'll slack them now. We'll slack them in.
You certainly can slack them, right? That was an exciting acquisition for us, but you shouldn't have to, right? We are using voice analytics. We know when an agent is stuck. We know when a customer is just not clicking with an agent. We can escalate, we can transfer, we can patch in a supervisor in the moment. That's and awesome. Then after the call, we can really, instead of sampling 1 in 1,000 calls for quality control, I can listen to all of them and analyze and know that, Ray, maybe you need more training on a certain product, and maybe Liz, you need help on something else, and then Clara needs training on something else.
Anger management for contact center agents,
Yeah, so we each get our personalized training plan as we continuously upskill, which is so important as the easy questions keep moving over to the bots.
And it's not just that NPS score at the very end, like, how did Clara do in that last call? It's like, no, we actually know how she did and how we can help her be better.
I don't need to send you a survey. I know exactly how she did.
That's awesome. I love it.
One less survey. Life could be much better. No, just kidding.
People fill those out. I always wonder.
Now it's like the really happy or the really angry, right? Yeah. Like I can't stand Ray, what he just said to me on that service call, 1 star, or like, oh my God, I love Clara, I'm going to send 5 stars. Yeah, it's
every interaction is a 5 at the end of the day.
Happy, supremely upset. Okay, I have a really quick lightning fast question because I know we're going to be over time. Clara, Ray asked you if it's 2040. I'm going to ask you to go back and whisper one piece of advice to Clara sitting at her desk as a software engineering intern, right? So if you're like, let's go back to Oracle, right? And just whisper in your ear of like one piece of advice that you've learned that you would like to give yourself when you were sitting in that desk.
Believe in yourself.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
Had a lot of imposter syndrome when I was an intern.
Yeah. I feel like I had that in like my last 3 jobs. Like it's just forever. So it's the constant reminder.
It's constant, yeah. Yourself, right? But we should remind ourselves and each other of that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh. I love it.
Well, there you have it. Clara Shih, believe in yourself, CEO of Service Cloud at Salesforce. You can follow her at Twitter at CLARASHIH. Thanks a lot for being on the show today, and congratulations on your role. And of course, having some fun at Salesforce. Great place to be. So
thank you.
All right. Wow. As you know, hour goes by super fast here on DisrupTV. And any thoughts on your end before we talk about who's next on episode number 244?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is just another case of Vala conveniently having a vacation when you have 3 ridiculously smart guests on that make me walk away feeling like a dope. I'm just saying, this tends to be a theme when you bring Liz on to DisrupTV, and I'm just going to blame it on Vala.
We only bring the best guests for you. We only bring the best guests.
And then I walk away like, I'm just going to go, I'm going to go knit something or something. Like, I don't know, but that was amazing. Oh my God. But here's the thing that I'm walking away from is that every single one of the guests today talked about something really important, and that was the humanization of everything that we do. And that was in every, from design to where we take compute and where we take privacy to where we take service. It was all about bringing that human, really, and embracing it, really embracing humanization in our businesses. And I think that was a really awesome thread.
That's a great point. We're humanizing digital, we're humanizing technology. More importantly, we're humanizing our experiences. And it's been great having these guests. Next week on episode 244, we have Mark Rosekind, PhD and Chief Safety Innovation Officer at Zoox. We also have TJ Jang, CEO of AvePoint. They just went public. And of course, Linda Hill, co-founder of Paradox Strategies and HBS, Harvard Business School professor. They'll all be here next week on DisrupTV. If it's Friday, if it's 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, come join us for a live DisrupTV show. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.